Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Stuppy, again, astrologer in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And this video is a continuation of some presentations contemplating the future. And I'm taking a look at some future planetary alignments that I think it would be good to keep in mind. And one of the main ones I want to focus on is Uranus Pluto, the opposition full moon that's going to happen September 2046. And so there'll be a series of videos like this where I'll bring in that alignment, September 2046 of Uranus and Pluto. It's a full moon opposition, the same kind of alignment in the sky of those planets during French Revolution and the 1960s. And I know it's quite a ways in the future, but I think we have the ability now with astrology to use that knowledge in a way that we haven't in the past. And I want to, so that's what this this video is, continuation of that, just to keep into consciousness some of these future alignments, and that way we can use astrology to anticipate further into the future and the 2046 Uranus Pluto opposition. And we can consider cultural evolution. Again, my name is Brian Stuppy, brianstuppy.com. Okay, and a lot of my work is based on my teacher, Rick Tarnas, Cosmos and Psyche. It is a book where he integrates ancient astrology into modern times and has a type of astrology called archetypal astrology, where he mainly looks at the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and how you can observe history and events in the past and correlate them with what's happening with planetary alignments. And if we do that for the future and keep it more in mind, then we have an ability to shape the future like we never have before. And again, this is the full moon. It's a 180-degree opposition. This glyph is signification of Uranus, the planet Uranus. This glyph is Pluto, and this is a zodiac with 12 signs: Leo, Cancer, Gemini, Taurus. You see my cursor going around. Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra, Virgo. And so in 2046, Uranus will have moved. Currently, it's almost going into Gemini. It's usually in a sign for about 7 years. And by the time 2046 comes, it will be just entering Virgo. Again, it's significant if we remember that 84 years ago, it takes 84 years for Uranus to go around the zodiac and return to the same place that it was. So in the 1960s, it was in Virgo, 84 years ago. And then Pluto is currently here in Aquarius, in this part, and it's going to take 20 years to get to Pisces. And in 2046, Uranus and Pluto are going to have a 180-degree opposition full moon. And we can anticipate that. And again, one of the things that I want to bring in is what Dr. Tarnas presents in his book, is this information, this knowledge that we have with the computer, that we can calculate where the planets were at different times. And I can do it within a few minutes, a couple of minutes. I can show you what was happening 1,000, 2,000 years ago, or 1,000, 2,000 years in the future. And we haven't had that before. And we can use all this knowledge to advance human culture. So in Cosmos and Psyche, Dr. Tarnas has a section on, he calls it the axial age, around 575 BC. And so this is a chart here of 575 BC. So these are the three planets. This is the glyph of Uranus. Oops. And so Uranus, this one's Pluto, glyph of Pluto, and this is Neptune. So they were within a 2 degrees. It's a conjunction. And so what a conjunction signifies when planets come together is like a merging of their energies. And it's a significant inflection point. And he points out that during that time, called the axial age, around 500 BC, 600 BC, that a lot of movements manifested in the world. Buddhism began, Lao Tzu, Confucianism, about that time. A leader called Solon in Athens had the beginnings of democracy at that time. Judeo-Christian spirituality began during that time. Greek philosophy expounded during that time. Hellenistic astrology. So there was just an explosion, a blooming of human consciousness at that time. And a lot of historians have pointed out that during that time, 500 BC or so, across the globe, there was things happening. And we, with archetypal astrology, we can show how, if we pay attention to where the planets were, that we can anticipate the future. So that's what happened in the axial age, 575 BC. And he actually points out on page 534 of Cosmos and Psyche, the next Uranus-Neptune-Pluto triple conjunction, as occurred at the time of the great axial awakening of the 6th century BCE, will take place during the 30-year period of 3,357 AD to 3,387 AD, approximately. And so in the year 3370, and I've got this chart here, right here in 3370, all three of the outermost planets will be within 2 degrees of exact alignment for the first time since 575 BCE. So again, we can anticipate we're not going to be around probably in the year 3370, but with our technology, we can see this is what's going to happen in a couple of thousand, in 2,000 years, about 2,300 years, 2,200 years. And so the main thing I want to just kind of settle in is that we have a lot of knowledge and a lot of technology that we didn't have 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 500 years ago. And we can use it to anticipate what's going to happen in the future. And so just this video is going to go into some of the origins of Hellenistic astrology, some of the astrology the Western world uses right now, as opposed to, there's different themes of astrology. There's Vedic from India. There's ancient Mayan and Aztec astrology, and all have their positive influence and things that we can draw from. This, my origins are from Hellenistic, and so we're going to cover some of that. This is what I use in my chart readings and some of my techniques. And so, why do we look at the planets and the stars? Our ancestors sought meaning in the heavens. Hellenistic astrology marked a turning point where sky and the soul intertwined, and this presentation explores where it began and why it still matters. So again, if we go back, I want to point out a couple of things. So here in 575 BC, so we know that the planet Uranus, I've got my cursor here, Pluto and Neptune were within 2 degrees in the sky. But actually, consciously, humans, the science at that time, or the philosophers in Babylonia and Greece, they had no knowledge of these planets, Uranus, Pluto, or Neptune. So these planets were only discovered in the modern period. Uranus was discovered in 1781 by Herschel, an astronomer in England, English astronomer, 1781. And a lot of his astrologers point out this synchronicity that Uranus has been determined to be a planet that generates revolution, new things, innovation, and definitely shakes the status quo. And it was right during the American Revolution and the French Revolution that it was discovered, 1781. Pluto, well, Neptune was the next one discovered in 1846. And then Pluto was discovered not until 1930. And so we didn't really have conscious knowledge of these 3 planets. In 575 BC. But now we know that they were there, and we can look back and look at our history and see what was happening at that time, and then connect those events to what's happening in future alignments of this. But I just wanted to point out that humans didn't even know these existed at the time. We were not conscious of these 3. And so that's a little bit about Hellenistic astrology. It has its roots in Babylon, star lists going back 2,000 years before Christ, BC. And then the Egyptians had decans, and we're looking at the stars also, the Egyptians. And then when Alexander the Great took over the world, it brought a lot of these schools of thought together. And that's when Hellenistic astrology bloomed, around 200 BC up to 500, 700 AD. And that's Hellenistic astrology. Let me go to the next one. So I did some research in, so again, I want to show, this was information about the first recorded birth chart from the Babylonians, 410 BC, July 12, 410 BC. And I got a lot of this information. I want to show, again, this is one of my teachers, Chris Brennan, uh, Hellenistic Astrology. This is a fantastic book he wrote, and an even more thorough excavation of all astrological knowledge is on his website, the Astrology Podcast. He's got over 500 videos that's where a lot of my knowledge comes from. It's just unbelievable. He brings in astrologers from all different areas and all different ideas. And then also, I was using Nick Campion's History of Astrology, and then Demetra George, Ancient Astrology. So Demetra George was Chris Brennan's teacher at Kepler College when Chris was 19, and he wanted to study modern astrology, and the teachers at Kepler College wanted to bring in some ancient astrology. Chris initially resisted that, but once he was exposed to Hellenistic astrology, he dove into it and actually has become one of the main teachers of Hellenistic astrology in the last 20 years. So that's that. And so so this is the first recorded birth chart. So here, over here on the left is the cuneiform. So it was made by the Babylonians with reeds, cuneiform reeds, and this is where first writing came in, and about 410 BC. These are pictures of the first natal chart. Incredible. So if you think of 410 BC, before that time, most of the astrology was geared toward the nation and the king, and that's it. Here, 410 BC is where it shifted, and a lot of philosophy and the shift of Western culture shifted to the individual. It began to shift, and this was one of the turning points. 410 BC with it. This is an individual natal chart. There was never any before that. And here is, I picked the date that it had in there, and this would be the chart of that first one that I pulled out. I put it into my AstroGold software, and that's what it came out with a, see if I can get that bigger. Let me do this. Sorry about that. Do that, and then this efficient. So this is the first natal chart. So we'll look at that. Let me go back to Zoom. There. So this is a natal chart. And so the first natal chart, it shows that this is Capricorn. This is Capricorn glyph. And the sun, this is the sun is in Capricorn. And then Venus is in Capricorn, Mercury. It's kind of, it says January 12th in the text, Rockberg's text that Chris Brennan cites in his book. But the date is really, the day is unclear, but approximately 410 BCE. Anyway, that's the first time when somebody was born, they looked at the sky to see where all the planets were. And this is the sun, Pluto. This is the part of fortune. This is Jupiter, Mars, the ascendant, Now, the ascendant wasn't even used at that time. It wasn't until the Greeks uh, chose the ascendant. The ascendant is when somebody is born, what is the sign that's on the horizon? And that has a significant indication of a person's personality, is the sign that's on the horizon. And so that's that. Do this, and go back to this. And here we are. Go to, sorry, to here. And so that's a little bit about Hellenistic astrology and the first birth chart. And during that time, the Babylonians had come up with the zodiac, where there's 30 degrees in each sign. And there's 12 equal signs. And so that's 360 degrees. And it was fixed to the seasons. And so with tropical astrology, we use tropical charts, which is based on the season: spring, summer, fall, winter. Whereas in Vedic, the Indians in India use a sidereal, and it's based more on the moon and the nakshatras, they call it. And it's a sidereal where they use, whereas we base it on the seasons, the Western basic. Although there's some Vedic astrologers who also use the tropical zodiac or the sidereal. And then each sign has its own characteristics. And then gradually, as they watched the planets, the ancients watched the planets. They gave certain significations to the planets as they observed events that happened as the planets came into alignment with each other. Such as Mars was about strife, action. Venus is about union and harmony. So there's different significations for the planets. And another thing I want to point out was that the ancients, when they looked up, didn't have telescopes. And so really the planets just looked like stars. So they all looked like points of light. And so the ancients did not know that the planets were this close to us, to the Earth, and that they went around the sun. Wasn't until the 1600s Galileo observed it with the telescope. And then we knew the solar system, but we didn't know anything about the galaxies until the 1920s, when we realized that we are part of a Milky Way galaxy and that there's other galaxies. And they gradually have learned with more advanced telescopes. First, they thought there were millions of galaxies in the 1920s, 1930s, and then it moved up to billions. I remember when I was in graduate school, they would say 200 billion galaxies, and now it's up to 2 trillion. 2 trillion galaxies. And so the advance of human knowledge is continuing. And so, again, we'll go into later detail about whole sign houses and different house systems. And they figured out the meaning of each house. Each house 1, 2 through 12, has different meanings in a person's life. The first house is about who you are and your personality, individual, and your body. And the whole sign houses, the basis of the whole sign houses is that when you lay out the chart, that each sign is 30 degrees. So it's laid out. Each sign is one house. So wherever your ascendant is, whichever degree, it's in the first house. And we'll go into that more detail. And the philosophers, the Greek philosophers and the Babylonian philosophers, were trying to determine how much do humans have free will and how much is determined. In the past, a lot of Stoic influence is that once you have your chart, your life is determined, and that's gradually moved more towards we have free will. It's a map of potential. It's not determined. It's just an inner guide that we can use when we make our decisions. So they looked at your personal destiny and that there's a diamond that guides your soul's path, and that the natal chart is both a mirror and a compass. So it's not determined, this is the way it's going to be, but we can use the knowledge that we get from it in our personal lives and actually look at all of politics and all of events in the world. So the roots of the Greeks, the Babylonians, continue to inform modern astrology. It's a timeless system of meaning and reflection. And astrology invites us to ask, what's my place? How do I go forward? How can I use this knowledge in my daily life, and how we all can use it to shape the future? More reading, again, Hellenistic Astrology by Chris Brennan, Astrology, History of Astrology by Nicholas Campion. And then you can go to my website, brianstuppy.com or austinkopic.com to get more information. And with that, I will see you soon. Have a good day.